Guten Abend. I'm afraid that's all I know. My apologies, I don't know German. If you speak two languages in English, you're called bilingual, right? Nodding is the universal sign of recognition, yes. So if you speak two languages, you're considered bilingual. If you speak three languages, do you know what you're considered? Trilingual. If you speak three languages, you're trilingual. If you speak one language, you're American. It is a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invitation. Tonight I'll be talking about some material from a book that I did called The 29% Solution. This book is really perfect for BNI members and for anyone who wants to build a powerful personal network. You'll see that this book has been translated into German. We also have contributions from Harold and Michael on this book, and I think you'll find it very interesting. It talks about how to build your business through the power of networking. So let's get started. What do Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, and 6 degrees of separation have in common? Now, have you ever heard of the expression 6 degrees of separation? That's the idea where we are all separated by anyone in the world by 6 steps, that we're 6 degrees away from everyone or anyone in the world. So what do they have in common? Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, and 6 degrees of separation. Well, I'm afraid they are all urban legends. I said they were urban legends. I did a blog once called Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, and 6 degrees, and I had a gentleman post a message saying, "Hi, this is Chris Kringle. I am not a legend. I am real." So other than maybe Santa Claus, what do they have all in common? They're all urban legends. Unfortunately, this idea of 6 degrees of separation, although it's catchy, it's interesting, it's powerful, it is not true. It's not true. And I want to explain why it's not true. And I was surprised when I found out it was not true. The concept comes from this gentleman, Stanley Milgram. Stanley Milgram did a research project a number of years ago. It was called the Small World Experiment. The Small World Experiment. Now, this research project took place because he would be talking to people that he had never met before, and they'd be having a conversation, and they would find out that they both know someone. And they may know someone from a completely different area of the world, but they had this overlapping connection with somebody else. And people always say when that happens, "Oh my, it's such a small world." And so he wondered, how small is the world? How many steps does it take to get to someone? And so he literally did this study in the United States. He had 217 people in this study. And what he did was he gave these 217 people a packet of material. And they had to keep track of who they gave the packet to so that there'd be this running tally. And there was a specific person that they had to find in Massachusetts. He was a financial planner in Boston. Now, this was done in the 1960s, quite a few years ago. So we didn't have Google. You couldn't get on Google and look the person up and figure out who he was. So what he said was, just think of someone who you might know that person. And so what people would do is they knew someone who lived on the east coast of the United States. By the way, this started in Oklahoma, which is the middle of the U.S., and they had to get this packet to this gentleman in Boston. So he said, start by sending it to someone on the east coast. And maybe they know someone who lives in Massachusetts, and then maybe they know someone who lives in Boston, and then maybe that person in Boston might know this person. And that was the whole process. That was it. So how did it work out? Well, it turned out that on average, it in fact took approximately 6 steps to get from the people that it started with in Oklahoma to the gentleman in Boston. 6 steps. So what's my problem with the 6 degrees of separation? My problem is this. The truth is, only 64 people, only 64 of the 217 people ever got the packet through. Only 64. of the 217 people actually found the individual they were supposed to find, or 29% of the participants found the gentleman in Boston. And so we go around talking about the 6 degrees of separation as though everyone is in fact separated by 6 degrees, when in fact what we found was that only 71% of the people were not able to find the person in Boston. Heck, I think 71% couldn't find their car keys. They were lost. They had no idea how to track this person down. So only 2 out of 3 people in the survey, or 2 out of 3 people in the survey were not able to find them. Only 1 out of 3 people were in fact separated by 6 degrees. This was a surprise to me. It really was. So why? I mean, this idea of 6 degrees of separation is an iconic concept. Why would I, arguably an expert on networking, kind of take a shot at this very iconic concept of networking? And the reason for that is I have found many people who think, look, we all know we're separated by 6 degrees. All I have to do is go out there and meet people, and eventually I'm going to find the people who need my product or service. And unfortunately, that's just not true. It's not true. And by the way, Stanley Milgram never said in any of his writings that we are all separated by 6 degrees. He never said that. It was the media who heard this fact that 64 people were able to find the person, and it took 6 steps, and the media started talking about 6 degrees of separation. It ended up doing many articles. Even a movie was made about 6 degrees of separation, starring Will Smith. And so this whole idea that everyone's separated by 6 degrees, unfortunately, is not true. However, we know that at least 1 out of 3 people were in this project. And by the way, he did this survey or this study 2 or 3 times. 29% was his best result. His worst result was 5%, but his best result was 29%. So why then are some people able to be connected like they are and others are not? I believe that some people are able to be connected by 6 degrees because of these factors, and that is education, commitment, training. Each of these things, practice, each of these help people build these connections. That you have to practice networking effectively. You've got to be committed to the process. It's important that you get training and education in order to be successful at connecting and networking with people. And these people had a skill set. This 29% had a skill set that no one else did. So what is that skill set? What we wanted to do with this book was to give 52 weekly strategies, networking strategies, that you can employ so that you too can be part of the 29% or the 29% solution. You too can build a powerful personal network that is connected to 6 degrees to anyone in the world. So we literally go through week by week 52 strategies. I don't have time to do 52 strategies today, so I picked a handful of the strategies that I think are really important. Now, if you happen to pick up a copy of the book, if you get a copy of the book, let me give you a suggestion that you'll never hear an author say. I've never heard any author say this. My suggestion to you is do not read the entire book from start to finish at one time. It's too much stuff. You'll have all of this information, and it's just overwhelming. It's like drinking water from a fire hose. You've got all of these weeks that you've got to do. Instead, what I recommend is read the opening, read the explanation, and read a week or 2. And that's it. And then apply that material. Try that out for a week or 2. Then go to the next week and try that out for a week. And then go to the next week. You really want to do this right. Take it in bite-sized pieces so that you can be effective. Now, some of these you may say, I'm really good at this, so I'm going to skip ahead to the next week. That's fine. 52 weekly networking success strategies. By the way, it's perfect. This book is perfect for BNI. We wrote this for BNI members because we meet every week, and the idea is for education coordinators to be able to teach our members how to build a powerful personal network on a week-by-week basis. All right, let's talk about some of the weeks that I think are important. Week number 2 we say block out time to network. Block out the time necessary to network effectively. Well, how much time is that? Now, when we wrote the book, we had some ideas, and we said, look, we think that you should be networking about 8 hours a week. That's what we recommended. But since we wrote this book, I've done another book. The other book was actually involved a survey of 12,000 people. It was a book that we did about the difference between men and women and how they network. The book was called Business, Networking, and Sex. Not What You Think. That was the title, Business, Networking, and Sex, Not What You Think. It's about the difference between men and women and how they network. We surveyed 12,000 business professionals from every populated continent in the world. And we asked a series of questions. One of the questions we asked was, how much time do you network? We found that the average business professional, and by the way, the survey was done not just of BNI members, but of the general business community. So this was a survey done of business professionals all over the world. We found that the average amount of time spent networking was 6.5 hours a week. 6.5 hours a week was the average. Now, I know some of you in the audience are going, okay, all right, 6.5 hours. That's what I need to be spending. How many of you, your goal in life is to be average? Most people look at, no, I want to be above average. Well, I'm here to tell you, the 6.5 was the average amount of time spent with people's networking efforts. And by networking efforts, I mean not just, attending a networking event, but it might be one-to-ones or follow-up phone calls with people or writing letters to people. There's a lot of different ways to network. But that in all of those different ways, you need to spend at least 6.5. We recommend more. 8 hours is probably about optimum. We have many people who did actually more than that. One of the things that we found was that there was a direct and dramatic linear correlation between the amount of time spent and the amount of business generated. So the people who spent more time, a straight line, generated a higher percentage of business through their networking efforts. So the people who were spending 6 hours generated a lot more business than people who were spending 3 hours. And people who spent 10 or 12 hours generated a lot more business than those who were spending 6, 7, or 8 hours. So there's a direct correlation between the amount of time spent. Now, this sounds obvious, but there's never been a study that actually evaluated that. This is one of the first research studies that actually evaluated that. And so block out time, we really recommend about 8 hours a week is a decent amount of time to spend in your networking efforts. And of course, BNI is what? An hour and a half. Maybe 2 hours if you stay a little after, or if you do a one-to-one after, maybe 2.5 hours. So what are you doing with your other 5 hours or 4 hours? This is a period of time that you should be spending networking in other ways. And I'm going to talk about what some of those other ways are. But this is important. Block it out. Put it in your calendar. These are the hours I'm going to spend this week networking. The next topic is week number 3. Profile your preferred client. Profile your preferred client. Over and over again in BNI, I see members stand up and say things like, I'm a full-service whatever. Maybe it's a printer. I'm a full-service printer. I can do anything that you need. My target market is anybody who wants whatever, somebody who wants. I'm sorry, I've never met Mr. Anybody. The truth is, you have to be laser specific about what you're looking for. And this is completely counterintuitive to the average business person. People think that if I'm that specific, that no one's going to know that person or be able to give me that referral. I've got to be able to say everything I do. And of course, you can't say everything you do in a minute. And so there's this sort of catch-22, this dilemma that people have. And they're general hoping to get specific referrals. But the truth is, you've got to be specific. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. I was in Ireland last year. And I was doing a Referral Institute training. I'll talk about the Referral Institute a little bit later. I was doing a Referral Institute training, a small group of people, maybe 15 business professionals. and I was invited in to be a guest speaker. And I was talking to these people, and I was talking about being specific when you have a chance to introduce yourself at networking events. And I said, here's how specific you should be. You should, not every week, like if you're going on a weekly basis like in BNI, you don't have to ask for a specific name every week. You should change it up a little bit. But on some weeks, you should be very specific and ask about a particular person that you want to do business with. And a woman out of this group of about 15 said, that doesn't sound right to me. Because if I'm really specific, people aren't going to know that person. It's a long shot. And I said, you'd be surprised. I said, what do you do? And she said, well, I do software, educational accounting software that we're trying to get into the school system here in Ireland. I said, great. Give me an example of what a perfect referral for you would be. Give me a name of someone. And she said, well, anyone, that's what she said, anyone who works for the Department of Education for Ireland. I said, great, give me a name of someone who works at the Department of Education for Ireland. She said, well, I don't know anyone. I don't know any name. I said, well, first of all, I didn't say this to her, but first of all, that's her first problem. You kind of have a sense of what your target market is, but not enough that you know exactly who your target market is. So that was a problem. So I said, well, you come up with some name. She said, well, the only name I know is the director, the top guy for the Department of Education. His name is, I think it was like John McCarthy. She said, John McCarthy, he's the department, but there's only 15 people here. No one's going to know John McCarthy. I said, well, let's find out. I said, how many, is there anyone here, 15 people, is there anyone here who knows Mr. McCarthy or knows someone who knows Mr. McCarthy? 2 people raised their hands. 2 people. I said, how do you know Mr. McCarthy? First one said, I was his college roommate. Know him well, we stay in touch. Second one said, I used to be a partner with him in investment real estate. I have his mobile number. I talk to him all the time. There's this British expression that I love. She was gobsmacked. She was shocked. This small room of people not only knew someone in her target market, knew the person she most needed to meet. And she never would have thought to ask. It's really important that you be laser specific about what you need. You may not get that contact every single time, but you'll be shocked. As a matter of fact, I have a prediction. If your entire chapter does that one day, and you have every single person ask for a specific name, I promise you someone is going to say, I have a crystal ball. I'm telling you, I can see this. Someone is going to say, oh my goodness, you didn't tell me you knew them. And do you know what their answer will be? You never asked. I have done this so many times, and almost every single time I hear someone say, you never told me, and the other person says, you never asked. You've got to be laser specific. This is completely counterintuitive. It feels like you're stepping off a cliff because, this is something that you don't think is going to actually work. But the truth is, it works extremely well. All right, let's talk about the next one. The next one is to give to others first. I love this photograph. Give to others first. Now, in BNI, this makes sense in BNI. A lot of people aren't surprised by this, but when I'm speaking to other audiences, this is a big step. People don't think this way. They don't, most organizations don't have this philosophy of giver's gain, this idea that you have to give business to people if you want to get business in return. And so this is really a different concept. And this is a concept that I think is really important because oftentimes people say to me, even BNI members will say, this networking thing that you did, this BNI thing is very American. You've heard that, yeah? Yeah, you may have said it, right? Okay, so let me talk about that. BNI is the least American thing I have ever done in my life. It absolutely is. I mean, think about it for a moment. When you think of American companies, Do you think of collaboration, cooperation? Do you think, let me help you? Let me give business to you. Maybe you'll give business to me. No. People think of American companies, they think of dog eat dog, put that guy out of business, competition. They never taught me giver's gain in business school. It's just not taught. We don't teach networking in business school, by the way. That's one of the things that I find very frustrating is that we don't teach word-of-mouth marketing, referral marketing in business schools anywhere in the world. Not just in the U.S., but in any country. Now, I have a theory as to why we don't teach this in school. Would you like to hear my theory? Okay, yeah? Before I tell you my theory, are there any full-time tenured professors in business in the audience? Okay, I'll tell you. Because they don't like this theory at all. Here's my theory. You see, university courses are completely controlled by full-time tenured professors. I was an adjunct faculty for 16 years, part-time faculty, and they'll bring in business people to do that. But full-time tenured professors are the ones who determine what is taught at a university. So here's my theory. Most full-time tenured professors in business have never had a real job in their life. They teach business, but have never run a business. Now, there's a few exceptions. I met an exception here in Germany. Amazing guy, Professor Dr. Faltin. Yeah, amazing gentleman. He is an exception. And there are exceptions. There are always exceptions. But the truth is, most professors are not like him. He runs a highly successful global enterprise, and he started it when he was and still is, actually he's a professor emeritus now, but he started it when he was a full-time tenured professor. So he's an exception, but most professors do not run companies, and they're clueless, and they have no idea how important networking is. They think it's a soft science. It's not a real skill, and they are so wrong. This survey that I talked about with the 12,000 people, one of the questions we asked them was, has networking played a role in your success? Has networking played a role in your success? And we found 91.4% of the 12,000 people, 91.4% said yes, it's played a role in my success. Let me ask you a question. When have you ever seen 91% of any group of people agree to anything ever? That's just unheard of. That 91% of 12,000 people, and remember, they weren't all BNI members, 12,000 people all over the world, dozens of countries, but 91% said that networking's played a role in their success. Yet, we don't teach this in colleges and universities anywhere in the world, and we certainly don't teach this. Give to other people first. You want to build a good business relationship with people? Help them. If you help them, they'll help you, or someone from that group will help you, and you'll all do better as a result of it. Here's another one. Week number 8, diversify your contacts. Diversify your contacts. Networks by nature are clumpy. Clumpy, that's the technical term. They're cluster-like. What that means is that we tend to hang out with people that are like ourselves. We tend to stay with people that are from a similar area, have a similar educational background, maybe a similar socioeconomic background. Why is that? Human beings all around the world do that. Why is that? Well, one of the reasons for it is that we feel more comfortable with them. We have things in common, and so we tend to connect with each other because we feel more comfortable. The problem is, it's not very effective networking, because if you diversify your networks, if your personal network has in your cluster, you have someone who doesn't have your educational background, doesn't come from your same socioeconomic background, they may not be the same ethnicity, they may not be from the same country even. What you have is someone who is a connector, who connects you to another clump. to another cluster of people, because that person also has that group of people that's in their network. And so the more people like that you have, the more connections you have to all of these other clusters, which makes your network very, very powerful. And most people don't get that. Most people want to hang out with people like themselves because it feels comfortable. Well, what I'm teaching isn't about making you feel comfortable. It's about making you more successful. And sometimes being successful means getting out of that comfort zone of yours. And diversity is absolutely key in building a powerful personal network. All right, week number 11. This is my absolute favorite. Week number 11. Talk to your family. Okay, so the family members that you actually like. You don't have to talk to all of them, but the ones you like, you have to talk to them. Now, this sounds silly. I know. It sounds like obvious to some extent, but it's really amazing how many times we don't tell our family what we do, especially, our extended family, beyond our brothers and sisters or beyond our parents. They oftentimes don't know what we do. Certainly our cousins and aunts and uncles often don't have any idea. And I know this is true. I've seen it in BNI. I had a BNI member once who told me this story. It was one of the reasons we put this in the book. She told me this story about how she and another BNI member did a lot of business together. She was an accountant, and the other BNI member was a lawyer, an attorney. And their offices were a half a block away from each other. A 3-minute walk. They were really close. And what they would do is they would have a client in one of their offices. And if the lawyer, or if she as an accountant had a client who needed legal advice, she'd say, I've got a good business associate. He's an attorney. You really need to talk to him. Would you like me to introduce you to him? And if they said yes, she would pick up the phone, call him. If he was free, she would walk her customer, her client, over there and introduce him. Boom. Great referrals. I mean, on a scale from 1 to 5, it was a 6. These were really good referrals. They turned into business almost every time. So one day, he would do the same, of course. One day, he called her, and he said, I have a client here in my office. She desperately needs an accountant, and I would like to bring her on over and introduce you and see if maybe you can work with her. And she said, great. And he brings over his client, and she walks in the door, and she looks at her, and she says, oh, my goodness, Karen? It was her cousin. The lawyer's client was her cousin. They'd known each other since they were little kids. She said, you're an accountant? I didn't know you were an accountant. They had no idea. And, of course, they loved to be able to do business with each other, but she just didn't know that Karen was an accountant. Family members will often really go out of their way to help. At least the ones that like you will go out of their way to help. So one time I know this firsthand because many years ago when I came out with my first book, my first major book, The World's Best Known Marketing Secret, which is also it's translated into German. I think they have that here as well. But when that book came out, and it had been out for about a year, I was in a local bookstore, really close to my house. I lived in Southern California, and I went to this local bookstore. It was a small bookstore. It was Walden Books, and it was in a mall, in the Montclair Mall, which was really close. We've got Astrid is here, our good friend Elizabeth and I. She was our au pair, and she lived in Cologne. Yeah, you're near Cologne. Astrid was living, and you had gone to the Montclair Mall, and so this is the Walden Books. She lives in Germany now. So it's great to have her here tonight. And so Walden Books was in this mall, and I was walking through the mall, and I just dropped in to see if they had a copy of the book. Now, my book came out a year earlier. And these were very small bookstores, and usually after a year, a new book, unless it was a huge, huge bestseller, they would, sell them out and bring in other new books. And so I didn't think they'd have it. And I walked in, and they had 2 copies of my book. I was excited. So I said, hey, would you like me to sign? I went up to the manager. Would you like me to sign these 2 books? And he said, yes, that'd be great. He said, are you a local author? I said, yes, as a matter of fact, I am. He said, yeah, please sign them. He said, would you be willing to do a book signing? All right, so let's talk. Book signing. If you ever feel like you're a big shot, okay? You ever feel really successful? You really feel like you're good at what you do? Write a book. And do a book signing. It will knock you down a peg or 2. It will humble you. There were so many book signings that I would do. And, you're sitting there at a table. And there's books, usually, 20 books or so sitting there. And people walk in and you smile and, they don't make eye contact, right? They look at you and they go, it's somebody selling timeshares. They think you're a timeshare salesman or something. And people would walk in and, my table would be like right here. They'd walk in and they'd go. And they'd walk all the way around. It's depressing, really, really depressing. So he asked me if I wanted to do a book signing. I felt was humble enough at that point. I didn't need to do it anymore. And so I said, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. But the book's been out for a year. I have sold this book to everyone I know. I don't think anyone would show up. And he said, no, you're a local guy. We would do great. I'm like, no, thank you. Thank you very much. No, really, thank you. No. Okay, I'll do it. It's not just me, right? I mean, you've done that where you say no, and then all of a sudden, yeah, okay. As soon as I said okay, I was like, oh, what did I just do? God, this is going to be horrible. I'm going to do this. It's going to be embarrassing. Nobody's going to show up. But I said okay. So about 6 weeks later, book signing day. I show up. I'm there. See the bookstore there? They usually, like I said, maybe get 10, 20 copies of the book. This bookstore had the entire front window full of books. There were, on the book table, there were stacks of books. He must have brought in close to 150 copies of the book. I thought, this is going to be the worst day of my life. This is going to be horrible, absolutely horrible. So I sat down and books all around me, and, I looked at people as they walked in, and of course they walked in, and they look at me, and I was like, timeshare guy, I'm not going to. And they'd walk around, and I'm not kidding. I'm sitting there thinking, this is probably the most embarrassing day of my professional career, right? I run a networking organization. I'm reasonably successful. Nobody comes to my book signing. It cannot get any worse than this. And at that moment, my mother walks through the door. My mother, who really, God bless her, she passed away a few years ago, but she really, she thought I was a really successful guy, and she walks in the door, and I am so embarrassed, and I'm thinking, oh, no, not my mom. No, it cannot possibly get any worse than this. This is the worst it can be. And at that moment, my mother says, Dr. Misner, Ivan Misner, what an honor it is to meet you. Oh, no, Ma, don't do this, right? But I couldn't say that because there's the manager right there. And my mother walks in and she says, oh, your book. And she picks up a copy of your book. She says, your book, the world's best known marketing secret. This is such a great book. And that organization you started, BNI, what a great organization. Now, I'm just horrified. This is so embarrassing. And my mother's going on, and I look, and she kind of steps aside, and there's my father. My dad's next to her. Now, ladies, I really believe that this is a universal trait. Men around the world. And ladies, you sometimes don't understand this, but fathers and sons who have a good relationship can have an entire conversation without saying one word. Right? Have you seen that? I looked to my dad and I said, which is, help me out here, Dad, right? He looked at me and he went, which is, she's on a mission from God. There's nothing I can do. Right? He didn't say anything, but that was it. So my mother says, oh, Dr. Misner, I would like to buy 10 copies of the world's best-known marketing secret. Now I'm thinking, Mom, I gave you a case of books. You have an entire case at home, and you're going to buy 10 bucks. But I couldn't say anything. The manager's right there. He's happy. So she said, would you sign them to my business associates, please? My mother, throughout her entire life, was a stay-at-home mom. She had no business associate. I'm like, all right, this is getting interesting. I wonder who her business associates are. So she's giving me these names, and I'm signing all these names, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is the neighbor that was, lived by us when I was a little kid, So I'm signing these books to all of my mother's neighbors, who she called her business associates. And now after, a few minutes of this, she's making such a ruckus. People are like, they're looking around the bookshelves, and they're like, why is this lady talking to the timeshare guy? What's going on? And they're kind of drifting somewhere near the table. A few people are kind of coming around. And so she looks at me, she says, well, Dr. Misner, it's been wonderful talking to you, and I really look forward to getting these books. We're going to take off and let some of these other people talk to you. And that's when my dad reached into his pocket, and he pulled out his credit card. My father's name is Ivan R. Misner Sr. That's when I had my second conversation with my dad. I said, he was looking at his credit card and he said, So now there's my poor dad who's got 50 books under the coffee table, but he's got to buy 10 books. He's got to come up with cash to buy 10 books. So my poor dad's going through his pockets to see if he doesn't have enough cash. So my mother's opening her purse. They're going through. Then I see my sister is behind the two of them. She opens up her purse. They're all going through to find enough cash to get enough money to buy these 10 books. By the time they found enough cash and stepped away, there was the longest line of people I have ever had at a book signing in my entire life. Huge line. Took forever. Forever to get through this line of people. And when we sold a ton of books. And when it was all finished, the manager came on up to me and said, yeah, see, I told you. I knew it. You're a local guy. You do really good. So if you're ever in Southern California, you go to the Walden Books there, please don't tell the manager that was my mother. He never knew that was my mom. You got to talk to your family. It's amazing what family will do to help you succeed, especially mom. Always talk to mom. Okay, next week is week number 12. Stop being a cave dweller. Don't be a cave dweller. I believe most business professionals are cave dwellers. They get up in the morning, they're in this large cave with a big screen television. They go out to their garage, they get into this little cave with 4 wheels called their car. They drive to this other really big cave with computers called their office. They stay there all day long. And at the end of the day, they get back into their little cave with the 4 wheels. They drive back to this large cave with the big screen TV, and they can't figure out why no one is referring them. Networking is a contact sport. You got to get belly to belly with people. You have to have a conversation with them. You got to actually talk to other business professionals. How many of you have ever gotten a haircut over the phone? It's one of those things where you have to be present. Well, I really believe, not all networking, but a lot of networking, certain types of networking, have to be done face-to-face. You got to connect with people. You got to show up and connect with people. And so there are different kinds of networking organizations that I recommend. I recommend you participate in a couple of different kinds of groups. BNI alone, I don't think, is enough. And sometimes it surprises people to hear the founder of BNI say, go join a local chamber of commerce, or join a service club, join a Lions Club or a Rotary Club, join an organization that's in the community, a professional association. Remember, you should be spending 8 hours a week networking. So participate in a couple of other groups. Now, you want to build a powerful personal network, you have to understand a concept I call the VCP process. Visibility, credibility, profitability. Visibility is where people know who you are and they know what you do. Credibility is where people know who you are, they know what you do, and they know you're good at it. Profitability is where people know who you are, they know what you do, they know you're good at it, and they're willing to pass you referrals on an ongoing reciprocal basis. It's a referral process, and it's chronological. You have to start with visibility, go to credibility, and then profitability. And so being in various networking organizations, different ones they have different strengths. Some of them really give great visibility. Some, like BNI, allow you to establish credibility and move straight to profitability. But the key is understanding that it's all about relationships. Networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. It's about cultivating relationships with other business professionals. All too often, in networking environments, what we do is we use networking as a face-to-face cold calling opportunity, right? Hi, my name's Ivan, let's do business. And we try to go right for business when in fact, that's not an effective way to network. I spoke in London a few years ago, 900 people in the audience, 900 people. I started the presentation with this. I asked them, you don't have to do it. I asked them, how many of you are here today hoping, maybe just possibly, raise your hands if you're hoping to possibly sell something. And we had 900 people raise their hands. 900, yeah, I'd like to sell something. Okay, I said, great. How many of you are here today, second question, okay. How many of you are here today, I asked them, hoping, maybe just possibly to buy something? Nobody raised their hand. I'm not kidding, 900 people, not one person raised their hand. I call this the networking disconnect. People show up at networking events wanting to sell, but nobody is there to buy. So why go to networking events? You go to networking events to work through the VCP process. If you're only at visibility with people, you want to take it to that next stage, get to credibility. If you're at credibility, you want to take it to that next stage, get to profitability. If you're at profitability, it's important to maintain that relationship and stay connected to people. So it's all about working through that VCP process, and one of the best ways to do that is to diversify your networks and to not be a cave dweller. Let's talk about finding an accountability partner. Finding an accountability partner. What we're talking about here is working with someone that will help hold you accountable. One of the strengths of a network is that most of the members are friends. One of the weaknesses of a network is that most of the members are friends. Friends do not like to hold friends accountable. The question that we have to ask ourselves in BNI is BNI a friendship organization or are we a referral organization? I believe we are a referral organization. That's the organization I created, was a referral organization. Now I understand that in order to pass referrals, you have to be friends. It really is much easier if you like the person that you're doing business with. So you have to be friends, but you also have to have accountability. And so I urge you to find someone in your BNI chapter or outside your BNI chapter who helps to hold you accountable. Sometimes it's an outside coach. I know a number of people here from the Referral Institute. The Referral Institute trainer is a great person to be an accountability partner who will help hold you accountable for spending 8 hours a week networking, for doing the right kinds of things, because you can't just go out and shake hands and try to close sales. There's certain things that you want to do consistently. To understand what the VCP process is, have someone help hold you accountable, especially if you're learning how to network. you really want someone to help you through the process. It makes a really big difference. Next, ask your own questions. When you meet people, come up with a series of questions, and we have some examples of questions in the 29% solution. When you meet people, have a series of questions about, tell me what you do, what's your target market, what's an idea of your best client. But look, don't write them down and go to meetings. I've seen people, no joke, I've seen people go, hi, tell me what you do. So what's your target market? How long have you been in business? All right, look, it's not like an interrogation where you've got this list of questions that you have to go through. The idea is to have a conversation. So have a few questions in mind, but then go with the flow. There's one question, though, that I think is a great question to end with. And the question is this. And you got to ask this at the end of the conversation, not in the beginning of the conversation. The question is, so what are some of the challenges that you have in your business? Okay, so don't start with that. Hi, my name's Ivan. Hey, what are some of the challenges you have with your business? Can't do that. You want to end with that. And here's why. Because you'll be shocked how many people will tell you. If you get them to open up and talk about what they do, and you create a dialogue with them, and I'm telling you, sometimes I see people who just meet people and they're selling. This is way better. You don't even have to say what you do, and you can get business. And here's how. You ask, tell me some of the challenges you have in your business. And you'll be shocked at how many people will tell you a challenge. That's now your opportunity to help them. And by help them, I don't mean sell something to them. I don't mean sell them your product or service. I mean, find somebody who can help them with that problem, help them with that challenge. I remember meeting somebody, and we have another book here, Truth or Delusion, Busting Networking's Biggest Myth. And here's the way we did the book is we ask a question and we say, is this truth or is this delusion? So here's the question we ask. You can network anywhere, any place, anytime, even at a funeral. Truth or delusion? And the answer is truth. However, there is a big however. You must always honor the event. So going to a funeral and passing out your business cards is a really bad idea. However, it kind of depends on how you define networking. To me, I define networking as finding opportunities to connect people and help people. And if you are there for that purpose, then yes, you should be able to network anywhere as long as you are helping. And again, I don't mean helping by selling them something. I mean genuinely helping them. I went to a church event years ago. It was one of those, it was a beautiful sunny day in Southern California. It was a potluck lunch. There was a gentleman there that I'd been wanting to meet. He was a very successful businessman. I went through the questions. Tell me about what you do. How long have you been doing it? What's your target market? A whole series of questions I asked him. And then the last thing I asked him was, so tell me, do you have any challenges? What are the challenges you have in this business? He said, you know what? I've got the craziest challenge. He said, our business is doing great. We're doing really, really well. And I want to give money to charities, but some years I do great, some years I don't do real well. And my company isn't so big that I can create my own foundation. I can't create my own charitable foundation. So some years I can give away a lot of money, some years I can't. And people are always, in the years I can't, I feel bad for the people in the years I do. So I'd love to have my own foundation, but I can't create one because I don't have that much money. I said, have you ever heard of a community foundation? They're all over the world. There was a really big one in Southern California. He said, no, what are those? I said, a community foundation is a really big charitable foundation, and you create a fund under their big foundation. And it's your fund. And you can give away money to any charitable organization you want. You just put money in that fund, and you can earn interest on it. They take a small percentage, like 1%, 2% for administrative fees, and you can give it away. So if one year you have 20,000 euros you can put in, or $20,000, that year you do it. If you don't have any money the next year, then you don't. And you can give away whatever you want. He said, oh my goodness, that is exactly what I've been looking for. I've never heard of such a thing. Now here we are at a church event. Church. Okay? He goes, oh my goodness, look, here's my card. would you mind giving me a call? Or introducing me to the person at that place, because that is exactly what I need. I got his card. I gave him my card. On Monday, I introduced him to the development director for the California Community Foundation. Here's my question. If I picked up the phone a week later and called him and said, hey, I'd love to get together for a cup of coffee and talk about what I do, what you do, see if there's any overlap in things that we might be able to work on together, would he take my call? Absolutely. Absolutely. Instead, what we do is we try to sell. We're looking for opportunities to make that killing, right? Yeah, we'll make this, there's an opening, I'll take it. Instead of trying to find a way to help. And if we can find a way to help, then we've invested in the relationship. We've established some social capital. And there's an opportunity then to continue the relationship. So it's very important. It's very important that you develop a series of questions that allow you to learn about that person so that you can help them in some way. In many cases, it's more important than you telling them what you do, because if you have a chance to meet a second time, they're going to want to know what you do because you've gone out of your way to help them. All right, week number 46, ask for referrals. Now, surely you got to know that I would have in the book somewhere, ask for referrals, but I want you to pay attention to what week number it is. It's week number 46. Now, time out. Do you know that you have that expression? Germany, time out. Pause. Okay, so in BNI, it's okay if you ask on week number 1. That's okay. BNI is a different kind of a situation. What I'm talking about is in most relationships, the last thing you want to do is to ask for a referral before there's a relationship. There's an expression in English that I think you've got in German as well. It never hurts to ask, right? Never hurts to ask, right? Wrong. It hurts to ask. If you ask too early, before there is trust, before you've established social capital with that person, they're not only not going to do business with you, they're going to hide from you because you've tried to do business with them and there's no relationship yet. It definitely hurts to ask if you don't have a relationship with someone. And so we wanted to make sure that we said in this book, look, you'll get to referrals. That's important. But don't do it right away. There's a lot of things you've got to learn before you start asking for the referrals, and you've got to establish the relationship. So we don't mean wait 46 weeks, but we mean wait until you have the relationship before you start asking for referrals. The next is commit to lifelong learning. Commit to lifelong learning. I think the most successful chapters of BNI are chapters that immerse and engage in a culture of learning. The chapters that really engage in learning are the ones that are the most successful. And I've done BNI all over the world. I see very little cultural differences that make a difference in the way a BNI chapter operates. There's a lot of cultural differences. So let me get that straight. There are definitely cultural differences. But differences that make a huge difference in the success of a chapter, very few that I've seen around the world, except one. There's only one that really comes to mind. I have one country that is so immersed in education and training that the average chapter size, and they have over 100 chapters in their country, it's a reasonably new country, just a few years old, their average chapter size is over 40. That's their average. It's India. Indian BNI members are so immersed in education. It is the only difference I see between them and almost any other country in the world. They are fully engaged in education, and the result is an average number of members per chapter that's 50% higher, 40% higher than the rest of the world. I really believe that the more you immerse and engage in a culture of learning at your chapter level, the more successful your chapter is going to be. Your education coordinator is really important. The material that we offer is very important. Much of it is in English, but we're getting a lot of it translated. We now have several books in German. 29% Solution, Truth or Delusion is in German. World's Best Known Marketing Secret. Look, there's so much material in that book. You got enough material in those 3 books to handle your education coordinator for the next 5 years. There's tons of content. But in addition to that, I've got a blog, ivanmisner.com, businessnetworking.com. And we have almost 600 blogs that I've put up there. If you feel comfortable with English, check out this blog periodically. You don't see it, but down below the bottom picture, there's a spot where you can put in your email address. So whenever a new blog goes up, you get notified. I promise you, you will not be spammed. Okay? We do not sell our list to anybody. I do not give my list away to anybody. I do not send unsolicited emails. You're not going to get a ton of stuff from me. You will get 1 email every time I post a blog. I blog about twice a week. So you'll get, and all it'll say is, here's what Ivan wrote about this week. Here it is. And you go, hey, that looks interesting. I'll go there. Or, nah, I'm not interested. And you delete it. But the nice thing is, look, we're all busy. We got stuff to do. We don't have time to remember to go to these websites. But if you want to immerse in a culture of learning, these are the kinds of things that you want to do. And as I travel the world and I see all kinds of things that are really working, I like to write about them. Oftentimes, the things I write about end up in my books later. Oftentimes. I love this one. This just went up this week. A flock of cranes. A flock of cranes. A flock of cranes in English are a bird. And, a flock of birds. But what I'm talking about are the construction cranes. And in Austin, Texas, where we've moved to, on our balcony, we look out over the balcony and we saw like 11 construction cranes. 11 big construction cranes. I was in Heidelberg just last week. And in Heidelberg, from our balcony, we saw 12 construction cranes. In Munich, driving down the street, must have been 8, 9, just driving down the street, 8, 9 construction cranes. What's that mean? What I talk about is construction cranes mean the economy is booming. When you see a lot of construction cranes, the economy is booming. Things are good. And it's an indicator of how the economy is doing. And I am seeing construction cranes all over the world as I travel. The economy is doing well, but I think you know that the German economy is definitely doing well. Go there, ivanmisner.com. My podcast, BNIpodcast.com. If you feel comfortable with English, go to BNIpodcast.com. It's not only an audio, you can listen to it. You can also download it on iTunes. It's free. You can download. All my podcasts are only 10 minutes, 12 minutes long. They're short. But we also have a transcript. So if you feel more comfortable reading it, we've got a word-for-word transcript of all my materials. My podcasts are like I'm doing a presentation to members. I'm talking about things that I think are of value to you as a member. If you would like to immerse and engage in a culture of learning, get your chapter to read this material, listen to this podcast, talk about this, work with each other, learn this material so that you can be more successful. I want you to be incredibly successful in BNI, and this is the way to do it. Okay. Referral Institute, you've talked about education. Referral Institute is probably the premier organization in going deep in training people. Now, some people say, yeah, but wait a minute, wait. I thought BNI was training us how to be a network. Okay, so do you know who one of the biggest companies in the world to train is McDonald's, the hamburger. They have one of the biggest training programs in the world. But McDonald's is not a training company, are they? They're a restaurant. They are a company that trains. They are not a training company. There's a difference. BNI is a company that trains. But we are not a training company. The Referral Institute is a training company. They go deep in teaching people how to build their business through referrals. I would urge you to take a look at the Referral Institute training programs because they really go deep in teaching you how in BNI and out of BNI, in other networking groups, in other contexts, how to build your business through referrals. And they're also great to be your accountability partner. You really want to immerse and engage in a culture of learning, I recommend them. Okay. What I'd like to do now is to open it up for questions. I think I've got about 30 minutes. 30 minutes, yeah. And I'm happy to take any question you've got. The only dumb question is the unasked question. Here's the way I'd like to do it. I'd like for you to give me your question. I'm going to write it up on this flip chart. I'm going to write all the questions on this flip chart. And what I'm going to do is try to answer, thank you very much. I'm going to try to answer as many of these questions as I can. I might not be able to get to all your questions, but I'm happy to stick around as late as you'd like tonight and answer questions individually. So let's do questions. I'm going to write them up here, and then I'll try and cover as many of them as I can. Ready, set, go. Oh, come on, be brave.
Okay, you talked about the book and the difference about men and women doing networking.
Yeah.
I would like to hear more about that. How do they do differently? What was the time issue?
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. That's a great topic. Yeah, and I think, don't you guys have some copies of the gender book here? Do you have copies? Where's Harold or Michael? Do you have copies of Business Networking and Sex? In English. We have copies in English of that book as well, but not in German. I don't own the rights to that book, so I can't just have it translated. Great question. What else?
Yeah. What was your biggest challenge in building BNI?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. Let me ask, I've never done this. I mean, I've answered this question. What do you think my biggest challenge would be? Don't know? I'd love to hear what you think my biggest challenge would be. There's no bad answer, by the way.
Maybe managing the growth?
Okay, actually, that's a pretty good one. And my answer kind of in a way fits that. So yeah, all right, good. Yes?
Hello, Stefan Gressler from Austria. You mentioned a study of 12,000 businessmen or business people you interviewed or who have been interviewed. Where do I find material on the study, please? Where do I find material on the study, please?
The Business Networking and Sex book. It's in there.
Okay.
That was an easy answer. And by the way, if you don't feel comfortable with English, ask the question in German. Someone will translate. I'm okay with that. You've listened to me talk in English, so ask your question in German. Any others? Oh, you guys are way too easy on me. I know some of you are going, yeah, I'd like to ask him. All right, right here. We get a microphone?
Hello, I'm from Holland, Maastricht. Hey. And I brought my fans, thank you.
It's your mom.
I have a question about the cultural differences of all countries.
Yes.
Not only companies, but also countries have a mind of their own. And you have BNI all over the world. And from experience, I know that people, when you bring something you want to do the same all over the world, they say, well, in our country and in our time, we are different.
Yes, we're different.
So what's your philosophy behind it, that you have the calendar and the agenda everywhere the same?
That's a great question. I'll definitely get to that one. While I'm waiting for another one, anyone want me to talk a little bit about how you invite people to BNI? Yeah? Okay, good. So I'll put that in. What else? Anything else? This is like the easiest set of questions that anyone's ever given to me.
Hi.
Yeah.
When you worked out the BNI agenda, was it planned that it talks to all different kinds of people? Or did it just happen to turn out and you noticed after you did the agenda?
Great question. All right. That it?
No.
Oh, one more. Sorry.
Ivan, was war deine peinlichste Networking-Situation? What was your most embarrassing networking situation you ever came across? Think about it.
Besides my mother? What's that? No, that wasn't so bad. I've had way worse than that. All right, let me give it. That's a great question. You might have stumped me. Let me think about that one. Most embarrassing. Okay, I know most of you can't read this. This is for me to remember more than anything. All right. That it? No, last question. Yeah?
Okay, Mr. Weiser.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Tim, also from Maastricht. First of all, I would like to thank you for making the video when we start up, where we had the launch of our chapter.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We had a great launch. About a year later, we had also a great event. Over 300 people showed up.
Yeah.
Our group went up with about 42 members. It came down to around 20. And now we notice that the flow is not that good anymore. And yeah, I would love to have it better.
Yeah.
And yeah, we would like some tips and tricks to get it done with our group.
Okay, so 40 to 20 members. I'll talk about that, and then I'll talk about inviting because they're both related. All right, last question, and I may not be able to get to all of them. Now we've got plenty. Last one. Go ahead.
Ja, ich wollte wissen, es gibt ja tendenziell Menschen, die mehr geben. Was können Sie verändern, dass sie auch mehr bekommen?
All right, so let me make sure I understand this. Some people you give referrals to, some people give referrals back, some don't. Is that basically?
They give more than they get. They live the principle from who gives gain, give us gain.
So are you saying that some people just take?
No,
No,
otherwise.
some people just
otherwise
give,
around.
but they're not getting business in return. Okay. Okay. All right. I can't do any more questions. I may not be able to get to all of these in 30 minutes. I will do my best. Actually, I got 25. I'll do my best to get to all of them. If I don't, see me afterwards. I'm not trying to not do any one of these questions. Well, maybe the most embarrassing. I don't know that one. But I'm happy to answer any of these questions. If I don't get to it, see me afterwards. I'm happy to try. I'm going to jump around a bit, but I'll start with the first one, men and women. So the book, Business Networking and Sex, Not What You Think, is about the difference between men and women and how they network. And there's so much that we learned in doing this book, and I really thought I had a good understanding of some of the differences, but I learned a lot from doing this book. One of the key things that we discovered is that men are more likely, and this may not come as a shock to people, but when you survey 12,000 people, you get some really good data. And so we have hard data that shows that men are more likely to be transactional in their networking, and women are more likely to be relational in their networking. That men are a little more likely than women to say, hey, my name's Ivan, let's do business. And the women are a little more likely to be talking about relationship things before they get into the business. And it played out in some very unusual ways that I never would have thought of. For example, many women said, oh yeah, you know what, when men introduce themselves, they introduce themselves like a resume. Hi, my name is Ivan. I'm the vice president of marketing for such and such company. I manage this large of a portfolio. And women are laughing. I see you out there. You're laughing because the men, okay, so when a man is talking to a man, what we discovered is that when they hear that, they're like, vice president marketing, check, very good. Supervises, woo, that many people, check, woo, really good. Handles a portfolio that big, oh yeah, double check. This is somebody I want to network with. Women, and this was a shock to me. I'm supposed to be one of the world's leading experts. I didn't understand this. Women said over and over, oh yeah, men constantly brag. They constantly brag about what they do. And that just really surprised me when I heard that. Now, here's something that women said, or here's a challenge that women had. Women were really good at the relational, but they had difficulty asking for the sale or asking for the referral. Now, I know some of you women are out there going, not me. Not me. Okay, so I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the average woman based on a survey of 12,000 people. Again, you get some pretty consistent patterns. And one of the things we found was that women had a harder time asking for the sale. And when they introduced themselves, it tended to be very relational. So man is transactional, I'm the vice president of marketing. Woman, here's an example of what, this is an actual example I witnessed. Woman was talking to a guy, there was three of us, and he said, what do you do? And she said, I'm with a cosmetics company, and I love my business so much because it gives me a lot of time and freedom to spend time with my family and my children, and it's so fulfilling. Now, this guy is sitting there going, oh, God. Just bleed me out. I don't want to hear all of this, right? So one of the things we discovered is that men have a tendency to think that women don't take their business seriously because they're having a relational conversation. Guys, women take their business very seriously. They just communicate, even in a business context, differently than men do. So Hazel, who's my co-author with the book, did some training with this woman and taught her how to do a different presentation. And this is what her presentation was, or introduction was after that. She, next guy she met, this was a few weeks later, her introduction went more like this. When she was introducing herself to men, she would say, I'm the director of sales for a multi-billion-dollar cosmetics company. I have 123 women under my management, and we do about $140 million a year in business. Guys going, check, 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 check. Right? And for men, one of the things we recommend is have a conversation that's a little bit more relational. Here's a technique that women use a lot, and here's how it went. I witnessed this once. One woman asked another, oh, how did you hear about tonight's event? She said, oh, my friend Sally invited me. Sally? You know Sally? I know Sally too. Of course, the guys there are going, oh, again, bleed me out. But I'm telling you, it's a great way to have a conversation. So guys, rather than, so tell me what you do. I'm the vice president of marketing. Instead of that, ask, how did you hear about tonight's event? Make it a relational discussion first. One of the things we found is that, it's really important. If you want to work more effectively with the opposite gender, learn how to communicate more effectively with that opposite gender. And a lot of people say, yeah, but I'm a man. I don't want to become a woman. And women are like, I don't want to act like a man. I'm not telling you to act like the opposite gender. I'm saying learn how to communicate with them better. If I were talking about behavioral styles, nobody would have an issue. High D behavioral style versus a high C or S, an examiner versus a go-getter. People are like, oh yeah, that's important. But when you talk about gender, so you can't talk about that. Yeah, you can. You got to learn how to communicate more effectively. A lot of great stuff in that book, and it was a lot of fun to do. They have some copies. It's in English. Let's talk about cultural differences. Look, there are definitely cultural differences around the world. We're in 55 countries, BNI. Someone from here, you asked the question, yeah? Okay. So, what country do you think was the first country that I heard, yeah, this isn't going to work here, we're different? United States, that's right. What year? I started in 1985. How long do you think it took before I got that? 1985. How many miles away? It was about 10 miles away. It was the first time 10 miles away. It was the, 4th chapter of BNI. It was the San Fernando Valley. I opened up the first chapter in the San Gabriel Valley. That doesn't mean much to you, but it's 10 miles away from where I started BNI. And the person said to me, yeah, no, this isn't going to work here. You don't understand, Ivan. We're different in the San Fernando Valley than you are over in the San Gabriel Valley, and then gave me this whole litany of reasons why it wouldn't work there. So here's my philosophy about the we're different stuff, okay? We're different, it won't work here. It generally is code for, that's way too much work, I'm not going to do it. It really is, because we operate BNI in 55 countries, and it is the same program in all 55 countries. How can that be? Because Germans are definitely different than Americans, and Americans are different than Malaysians, and Malaysians are different than Australians. We're all different. The thing is that we don't understand is that our similarities in many ways outweigh our dissimilarities. There is a culture of entrepreneurism. And that culture of entrepreneurism transcends many of the cultural differences that exist in business. And we're not talking about Germans doing business with Brits and Brits doing business with Israelis. We're talking about local businesses doing business. For the most part, we have the online referrals, but for the most part, you have local businesses doing business within the cultural context, not outside the cultural context. So you're doing business with people in a similar cultural context. All we have done is put an overlay on that cultural context, and that overlay is one that's all about building trust. It's all about building trust. There is no entrepreneurial nation in the world where trust isn't key to doing business. All entrepreneurial nations, trust is key. And so all we've done is create a program that is based on developing trust that operates within the cultural contexts. Yet everybody, everywhere, one of the most consistent things I've ever seen is everyone says we're different. Everyone. But the truth is, in many ways, we're very similar. And I think that's why BNI operates very successfully in 55 countries. Hope that answered your question. And I've been told I have 10 minutes, so I better hurry. Our biggest challenge has got to be, the BNI Connect was our biggest challenge. Still, it continues to be a challenge. You laugh, but listen, we got countries around the world. We have countries around the world that go, this is amazing. This is incredible. Because for the first time in the history of our company, you can communicate with people anywhere in the world. You can be a local business here in Düsseldorf and have a global network all around the world just like that. I got on BNI Connect 2 nights ago, and I got into the groups. By the way, do you know, I don't see too many German members on BNI Connect. You're missing a big opportunity. We're all doing business. Where are you? We're doing business. I'd recommend you come along because we're going. We have 1,500 groups on BNI. I did a search 2 nights ago. I found 51 groups talking about Germany. You know how many of them were German? Very few. Very, very few. We're talking about doing business in Germany. You might want to join the conversation. BNI Connect is a game changer for this organization. And you'll either be part of the game or you won't. It's up to you. But it was absolutely the biggest challenge. And I want you to think about it. We created a system from scratch that connects 55 countries with 55 languages. Some read left to right, some read right to left. All the different currencies, all the different languages, all the different addresses, all the different issues, the different Security Data Protection Act regulations, U.S. Safe Harbor regulations, Canadian the business requirements specification for the first tranche of BNI Connect was that thick. I had somebody who said, man, I can do a better job than they're doing. I said, really? Yeah, absolutely. I said, well, here's our BRS. Take a look at it, the business requirement specs. Took a look at it and went, yeah, never mind, I can't do this. This is a very, very complex program, and we're doing it without venture capital. Vulture capital, like, you know. We're doing, this is an in-house project. Be patient. Be patient. BNI Connect is a game changer. It will connect people all over the world. You can be a local business and have a global network. Join the conversation. Have you completed your profile? Yeah? Really? Really? Because many people haven't. And I think, you know, imagine you buy an advertisement in the newspaper and leave it blank. I see BNI members who are paying for a membership and they haven't filled out their profile. And guess what happens when people are looking to do business with you here in Düsseldorf? They're going to pull up your profile. And if it's complete, they're going to talk to you. If they're looking for your profession, they're going to talk to you. If it's not, they're going to go to your competition somewhere else in Düsseldorf. Because they're looking for people. And if you think referrals aren't being generated on BNI Connect, go to BNI SuccessNet, our newsletter, and look in the section called I'm Connected. And you'll see one story after another story of people who are connected. One of the best stories I heard was from Michael the other day. A BNI member, what was the city, Michael? Munich? Munich, who was an electrician that had a business with Starbucks, and didn't have enough opportunity, didn't have the wherewithal to work with the Starbucks in another city, and so he referred another BNI member from that other city to get Starbucks as a client. So you don't know what members are out there looking for you. BNI Connect is an incredible opportunity. It's also been our biggest challenge, but sometimes our biggest challenges become our biggest opportunities. Okay? The agenda, I'm not sure that I did the agenda understanding different, I didn't do the agenda understanding different behavioral styles. However, it probably seeped into it. Somebody from here asked that question, I think, yeah. It probably seeped into it because my consulting business did a lot of DISC profiles, the DISC system, drive, influence, steadiness, compliance. So I'm sure that that kind of bled into what I did in terms of developing the agenda, because I did a lot of training with it. But it wasn't conscious. It was probably subconscious. I got to talk about, okay, let's talk about people who are giving, but they're not getting business. You're not going to like my answer, but I'm going to be honest. There's one of the comments, and this isn't about any particular person. This is just my experience in general. There's one of the truth or delusions. One of the items in truth or delusion is, if I'm not getting referrals, it is my referral partner's fault. The people that I network with, it's their fault. Truth or delusion? The answer is delusion. If you're not getting referrals, it's all your fault. It is your fault. Why? The truth is, you have got to be really good at teaching people how to refer you. It's not, in Giver's Gain, in BNI, we've got this concept of Giver's Gain. We want people to give us business, but it's incumbent on us to teach them how to give us business. And if you're not getting referrals, you might want to take a good look at what you are saying or what you are doing. Because if maybe you're not providing the quality of service that you want, but generally it's that you need in order to get the referrals. But generally it is that you're not teaching people how to refer you. And so I would sit down, if you're having that problem, I'd sit down with your local director and talk about, how do I do a better job of teaching people how to refer me, and being specific like I was talking about before. If you're not getting referrals, you really want to work on yourself, not so much other people. My advice. Okay, I'm not going to get to all of these. I got to think about the most embarrassing. I think you have stumped me, but I'll come up with something, I promise. I got to wrap up though. Let's talk about inviting and this 20 to 40 members, and it'll be related. Here's how I recommend you invite people into BNI, okay? I think this is the best approach. The approach is, I call it we're interviewing. We're interviewing is the technique, and it goes like this. I'm in a referral group. We get together on a regular basis. We're interviewing, and then fill in the blank, whatever profession you're looking for. Maybe it's a banker. We're interviewing bankers to bring in one of the better bankers in the community that we can give all of our referrals to. I think you might make a good candidate. That's the way you invite people. We're interviewing. I'm in a referral organization. We get together on a regular basis. We pass each other referrals. We're interviewing bankers to find a really good banker in the area that we can give all of our referrals to. I think you might make a good candidate. What's the subtext of that conversation? What's not being said, but which is being meant? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's pretty direct. The subtext is, we might not pick you. That's the subtext. Don't say that, by the way. But that's what you're not saying, but that is what you're implying. We're interviewing to find the best candidate or a good candidate that we can give all of our referrals to. The subtext is, we might not pick you. Entrepreneurs hate not being picked. They want to be picked. What do we do instead? All too often, we come on way too strong with people. Oh, I am in this referral group. You have got to join this organization. It's amazing. Yeah, it meets really early. I know it's okay, but look, do you need a wake-up call? I'll give you a wake-up call. I'll pick you up. I'll drive you. I'll drive you to my meeting. It's on the corner, and I'll pick you up early. And we beg people to come. Let me tell you something. Don't beg anyone. Don't ever beg anyone to come to BNI. You don't have to beg anyone to come to BNI. You're doing them a favor when you invite them to BNI. They are not doing you a favor by coming. And this is another counterintuitive thing. The more selective you are about the people that you bring into BNI, the more successful your chapter will be. The more successful your chapter will be. Be selective about who you bring in. And the more selective, the more difficult it is. Don't be crazy difficult, but the more selective you are, the more people want to be in, because not just anybody gets in. I think most chapters, the only test they give a potential new member is the mirror test. They put a mirror under their nose. If it fogs up, you're in. We'll take you. Hey, you don't even have to fill out the application. You're in. We'll take you. No, we think you really need to be selective. You want to build a chapter back up to 20? I'll tell you what to do. Where'd the question come? You want to build it up to 20 or to 40 again? Drop it down to 17. I'll tell you why. You probably have 3 people in there that don't belong. 3 people that are bringing the whole group down. There's an article my wife and I wrote a few years back called Addition by Subtraction. You want to build a chapter? Cut it back a bit. Get rid of the dead wood. I remember meeting a woman once who said, we got a guy in our chapter, we're trying to build a chapter, but we can't build a chapter. We have a guy in our chapter, the best thing he can do for our group is call in sick. When he calls in sick, we have a great meeting. He is, she said, a fun sucker. He sucks the fun right out of a room, right? And when he's here, we have a really depressing meeting. Why do you have those people in the meeting? I asked her. And she said, I don't know. I've got a new book that's just coming out. It's called Who's in Your Room? And it's about the quality of your life depends on the people in your life. The quality of your chapter depends on the people in your chapter. Be selective about the people you bring in. And you want to know what you select on? You want the top 3 characteristics for a successful member? Yeah? You ready? Number one. Order of priority. Number 1, attitude. Number 2, attitude. Number 3, attitude. I used to say, it's length of time in business, and it's qualifications, and it's, all of these things. It's none of that stuff. It's attitude. And why attitude? Because what I found is if you have people who have a positive attitude, you can teach them how to network. Think about it as an employee. I would much rather have an employee who I teach what to do, but they have a great attitude. If I have someone who has great skills, but they have a horrible attitude, they're a lousy employee. It's the same with a member. I can teach people to network. I can't teach them to have a good attitude. And we don't have time to send them back to mom to be retrained. So sometime you want to build your chapter to 40, and I don't know your members, and I could really be wrong. I could be wrong. But I'm guessing, having done this for almost 30 years, and having seen this many times, that if you cut your chapter back to 17 and then focus on the fundamentals, you stick to the program like glue, you'll be back up to 40. You can be easily back up to 40 in 3 to 6 months. But you got to do those 2 things. Read that article, Addition by Subtraction, on BNI SuccessNet. All right, I'm out of time. I have one last story for you before I wrap up. As I travel around the world, people ask me, what's the one thing? I mean, if there's just one thing that you could share that will help me learn how to be successful in business, what's it got to be? And if I could only pick one, it would be motivation. I have never seen anyone succeed in business or in life who wasn't highly motivated. They really were motivated to get something accomplished or to do something. Got to be motivation. There's this really wealthy father many years ago who threw a coming out party for his young 18-year-old daughter. And he invited all the eligible bachelors to this really big party. And he took them out to his backyard where he had this Olympic-sized swimming pool. And he said, gentlemen, I have filled this pool with poisonous snakes and alligators. Poisonous snakes and alligators. The first young man to swim all the way across to the other end of the pool can have his choice of one of three things. He can have $1 million in cash, or he can have 10,000 acres of my best land, or he could have the hand of my beautiful daughter in marriage and inherit all of this someday. No more did he finish the word day than he heard this loud splash. And almost instantaneously, this kid jumped out of the other end of the pool. I mean, this kid set a land speed record getting across the pool. Father ran on over to him. He said, well, young man, what would you like to have? Would you like to have the $1 million in cash? Young man said, no, sir. He said, would you like to have the 10,000 acres of my best land? Young man said, no, sir. He said, you want the hand of my beautiful daughter in marriage and inherit all of this someday? And again, the young man very politely said, no, sir. Well, perplexed, the father said, well, what do you want? To which the young man said, I want to know who the hell pushed me in the pool. The truth is, there is no one who can push you in that pool but you. You are responsible for your own success. I see thousands and thousands of members all around the world, highly successful at this, but what they are is highly motivated. They're highly motivated to follow the system, to follow the program, to implement it, and to implement it within a special context. You know, Ralph Waldo Emerson once said that what lies before us and what lies behind us is nothing compared to what lies within us. What I love about BNI is that it takes the best that lies within us. It takes this concept of giver's gain, this idea that if I give you business, you'll give me business, and we'll all do better as a result of it. And ladies and gentlemen, I cannot think of a better way to do business into the next century than with that philosophy. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.